Welcome to Tipping Point, brought to you by Postal and NBC Palm Springs. For years, Palm Springs has been a favorite destination for the rich and the famous, home to big names at the top of their game, like Bob Hope, Merv Griffin, Lucille Ball, and of course, Old Blue Eyes himself, Frank Sinatra. So now, we're reaching out to people from all across the country who are at the top of their game and asking them to share their stories with us. They all have one thing in common. They all came to a tipping point, a moment in time where they had to decide if they were going to fight for what they wanted or if they were going to roll over and accept their fate. They'll be answering questions like, when did you decide to fight? Did you know you would succeed? What was your tipping point? We encourage you to visit NBCPalmSprings.com to participate in the interactive portion of the series, and I hope you enjoy. On today's show, we have Abeer Raza, co-founder and CMO of TekRevol. Thanks for joining us.
Oh, pleasure being here, Greg.
So Abeer, you come to us from Pakistan, which is incredible, and I understand that you go back and forth a lot. Can you tell us a little bit about that work-life balance?
Well, the flights are hell. That's one thing, but it's pretty cool. You get a feel for both the different places, both the different teams that we have. There's a lot that you get here. The weather is amazing, obviously California, and you get to meet with a lot of wonderful people. We have a team here that's working with the clients, so you get an engagement in that perspective. But in Pakistan, that's where we have the creation team, the developers, designers. So we get a lot of brainstorming going on there. So it's interesting.
And so when you say here in the United States, I understand San Francisco, correct?
Yeah, Newark,
okay,
which is like about 45 minutes away from San Francisco. We're pretty much mostly in San Francisco because
that's
where
hub.
Yeah. So a lot of meetups, a lot of networking. So
that's
fun.
Amazing. So how did you come to have locations in both spots?
So we realized early on that having an onshore presence is the right way to go, and now we're trying to add up more resources as well because most of our clients want somebody to coordinate with, and then engaging with other companies and working with them, as being a part of their team. It's just a much better experience. Like it's a different experience altogether when you're offshore and you don't have the engagement.
So you grew up in Pakistan, correct?
Yeah, exactly.
And what was your career path that led you to where you are today, that led you into tech?
Well, a friend referred me. But yeah, that's the short answer. I think I was always interested in creating things, right? Tinkering with things and coming up with different objects or stuff. So in school, doing programs like, creating a calculator or creating games and stuff. It was always pretty awesome because you get to get a feel for when the other person uses your program. So that experience is just overwhelming. And that's what led me towards this.
That's incredible. I understand too that you did a little time in a call center as you were growing up.
Yeah, exactly.
What was that like? I've always wondered. I'm always on the end where I hang up, but what's it like being on that side?
Well, it's not nice, but you get to talk to a lot of people, which is good. I'm an introvert, so for me to talk to the next person that you have to get to know in the next 2 minutes is interesting. But it taught me a lot of confidence, right? And obviously helping people, making them make the right choices. It's just it teaches you something.
And so I understand then you went from there to actually owning a call center. How did that happen?
Necessity, mother of invention. So when I started off, the call center was shutting down, and there were a lot of people that were going to be jobless. So we entered into this partnership with another company that decided to take the people that I was working with, and we started something up. And then I had some rifts, so then we had to pivot and go someplace where we could start something ourselves. So it was like a pretty small office with maybe 5-6 people in somebody's house. So it's pretty rudimentary. But we did well there. If it hadn't gotten boring, I would still probably be doing that.
So it sounds like you kind of found a path through a lot of your life that was driven by creativity and by the desire to do more and not settle into that boring routine.
Yeah, it's whenever you feel like there's something gnawing in your head that you just aren't satisfied with what you have, even if you have everything, right? You might have money, you might have, your career ahead of you, you might have everything, but then there's something that's missing. That's I feel like the indication that you're supposed to do more. And it's not something that, is gonna make you great or is gonna be amazing, but it's just that you have to try it. There's no two ways about it. You just have to push yourself to do more.
Yeah, that's incredible. And I couldn't agree with you more. And that's kind of why we have this show, Tipping Point, is we like viewers being able to see behind the curtain and understand that you're successful now, but it wasn't always that way. And that there were those moments where you had to fight through or necessity led you down a path. And so I understand growing up, you sort of took care of your family. And there was a certain point in time where you were the breadwinner. I can't imagine that was easy. Can you tell us a little bit about that? And then if you had that moment where you had to decide whether or not you were going to push forward or kind of settle in and accept the call center life.
Right. So I still am the breadwinner. So there is a certain consistency to that. But I think that's you might not understand it, but that's how you're brought up in the country where I'm from, where the male takes care of the family. So there is that, but it's I've always been a responsible person. Never got into other extracurricular activities. So it just made more sense for me to take that on myself and then move forward with it. Try to make the most of it. So it gave me a drive to always push for more, to always ask for more, and not settle for anything that I had.
So did you have that moment where you had to decide, or were you always just focused? Or was there that moment where you thought, all right, I'm onto something special, I'm going to push harder down this path, specifically the one you're on now?
Well, there were a lot of miscalculations, several. I lost a lot of money. I tried to start some products, several businesses, failed and burned down. The last success that I had was the call center, which was not much of a success at all, but we had profit, which was good when you're like 21. So, but I think, I always had that gumption that you had to get up whenever you're down. Failure does not mean that it's done. It just means that you've learned something or learned a way of not doing it, right? Mm-hmm. So for me, definitely there was a very, very defining moment where I realized that this is it. This is the right move.
That's incredible. Yeah. I understand too that you're up for an award now. You guys have been so successful that you're up for top 10 in tech.
Yeah, clutch. So we are, in California, they have awards throughout the US, but in California, we're up for an award. Hopefully we win it. We already top 10 in San Jose, and Newark. So to have like a tech company that's the top 10 in California is going to be pretty big, because we are competing with companies that have been there for like 10, 15, 20 years. So I don't know what's so special about us. I'm still trying to figure it out. But, I guess people like us.
Well, I'm sure it's that drive and that hard work you learned early on from the call centers up.
I think it's more than that. So for me, it's more about the partnerships that we develop with clients. Because I've been through in their shoes, right? Having failures after failures after failures. So I understand what they're going through. Every time they get down, they lose all their revenue, all their money savings that they had. They need somebody to push them on, to motivate them. And that's, I think, one of the things that most of our clients enjoy working with us. We're always there to pick them up and tell them it's going to get better. You just have to move forward. And help them in any capacity whatsoever. Like half the stuff we do is pro bono, because we know that once they hit it big, it's, we're going to be right there with them. So, yeah.
So it sounds like when you work with clients, you're more of a consultant than in building a product and just turning it loose.
Yeah, exactly. So that's the key factor, right? They're tech companies are a dime a dozen, right? So how do you, make yourself different? And it's not something that really connected that way for us. It's just one of those things that we realized early on with the clients that we were working with, because their companies scaled with us. We have clients that have, gone from $100,000 in revenue to multi-million dollars in revenue during the time that we have served them, and they have stuck with us for the long term. So I realized early on that this is what we're good at. Mm-hmm. We are good at helping businesses scale, not just building something, which is pretty cool in itself, but really getting into it, really helping them scale. So one of the components in our vision statement talks about individualistic collectivism. It's a term that I coined. What it means is that in order for you to think about yourself and help yourself, you first have to help the other person. You always have to have your own goal in mind. You know that by helping this client, I'm going to land this, but then the focus then shifts from your priorities to the client's priorities.
So along the way, I'm sure you've worked on a lot of incredible projects. Do you mind sharing one or two of your favorites with us, or ones that you're particularly proud of?
Yeah, sure. So a few months ago, I was in Baltimore City, and we were having a fundraiser for a client of ours. And it was a brilliant experience. It was amazing. We're doing this application that's going to connect law enforcement officers with kids that are growing up. And the idea here is to solve a problem that exists, which is the fact that people, in Baltimore City don't trust the police, and the police, obviously, there's a lot of crime. So transparency is something that we feel would help people by creating an application that can bridge the gap. And it's pretty amazing. I met with senators, delegates, NFL players, a bunch of really incredible people that had the mindset that they want to help. So this application is definitely going to change the world.
That's an amazing story. Yeah. And I think it leads really well into the next question, which is the Internet of Things. Is talking about connectivity and about transparency is a huge issue these days, especially with Facebook being called forward for the way that they collect data, and Amazon just got sued for listening in on children. So it has all these benefits, but it also has a scary side. Can you talk a little bit about where you think it's heading and what you see the impact that it has on technology and on daily life?
Right. So, there is definitely, if imagine, the whole scenario of the actually Terminator happening, right? Mm-hmm. This would literally be, the time when Skynet is starting to build up. So it is scary. It's one of the very reasons why I never really went into software engineering myself, because I was always like, this is not good. Like, you're giving all that information. But there are contingencies in place. I'm sure Google, Microsoft, and other companies that are out there have security layers that make sure that the data is not sifted through by human beings. And I think what better way to make sure that you can create a synergy and create new things than to let machine learning or deep learning be a part of your ecosystem. So if you as a human being might not be able to understand how to make decisions, but machines definitely do. So there's that.
So the Baltimore project sounds incredibly special, and is something you're obviously very proud of. But do you have any other projects you'd like to share with us or tell the viewers about?
Yeah, for sure. So the Baltimore project is called the PAP program. Daniel Burgess is the main person behind the scenes who thought this through. But we're working with Steve Jimenez and Arthur Loyens in Houston to create a veteran application that's going to help veterans integrate better into society, connect with organizations that can help them get a better footing, get jobs, and there's so much going on. The stats are just amazing, astounding. I'm sorry, wrong word. When it comes to veterans having PTSD and other issues, about 18 veterans die every single night. So having an application that can help that in some capacity is just great. And The guys that we're working with, they're super passionate about it, and that's another application that's going to help change, I think, the veteran community overall. And
it seems like a lot of your projects are focused on social change. Has that always been a calling for you, or?
Actually, this is one of the things that I'm going to be doing a webinar on. So it's something that we've kind of led into. We're very lucky that the people that we get, the clients that we get, have that passion, and they want to change the world. Create a revolution, so to speak, which is where the name comes from, TekRevol. Similarly, the application that we were doing right now, that I was here in LA for E3 convention, that's a gaming community that's going to change how games are reviewed. It uses a Tinder type swipe functionality. So for a gamer, it's just so much more easier for you to review them with GameSpot and IGN being the main competitors. So yeah, it's just so many things that we're working on that would allow us to change the direction of technology as a whole. So it's pretty exciting.
Well, especially with your drive and your focus, we're really looking forward to seeing what you guys come up with next. So the show's name is Tipping Point, and I feel I'd be remiss if I didn't ask you about yours. Can you share with us a little bit about that point in time where you knew you were onto something special?
Yeah, sure. So this was like an year and a half ago, where the date is pretty specific. And I wrote it down on a piece of paper, which is why it's very specific. Because what this meant for me, the tipping point, so to speak, was when everything changed. And I did not know at that time. It was, for me, the biggest risk that I've taken so far. I was working with this really cool consulting firm where, I was exposed to great clients. The money was good. I was living out here in Houston. So, everything that a person from Karachi, Pakistan would love to have, right? And to leave all of that to be a part of my business was the stupidest and the most brilliant decision that I've taken yet. And on that same piece of paper, I wrote down why I'm doing this, what is leading me up to it, why do I have to go into it. And there were several factors. Obviously, it was a necessity. It felt like a necessity at that time. I had, my parents got really sick, and the hospital bills were crazy. So my savings got shot. And I realized that I did not like being in that situation. And I did not want to be in that situation ever again, where I'm just completely dependent on somebody else. I wanted to take control into my own hands. So we had been incubating this project, which is now TekRevol. My partner, Asim, he has been so resilient throughout. He was very forthcoming. He was like, if you want to come in full time and give time into the business, I'm completely for it. And that was it for me. Like, leaving all of that security and then jumping into something which might not have worked was insane. I just got married like 3 months ago. So and then I think that's when the drive kicked in. Now all bridges were burned. I had to row forward, and that's what I did.
Wow. Well, with your drive and your experience, we'll certainly be paying attention to what you do in the future. And we really thank you for joining the show.
Thanks,
Abeer.